This is an AccuWeather Alert from Channel 7 Eyewitness News.
And good evening from the Eyewitness News AccuWeather Center. I'm meteorologist Lee Goldberg, and we have an AccuWeather update for you for the upcoming stormy weather that we'll have to deal with right through the weekend. Thank you, as always, for clicking on ABC7 NY, and let's get right to it, because I know you'll have a lot of questions, and we'll get to those. But let me just go through the overall thinking that we have as we go through these two storms, and I've been looking at some new information during the early evening hours that may shed some light on these two storms. Okay, so first of all, the broad strokes, where we have a light snowfall tomorrow night, and we're concerned about slippery travel into your Friday morning commute. A larger storm will impact us over the weekend, and that's going to bring a dangerous mix of some snow. Some areas will get prolonged ice, will go over to rain, back to snow, and then the bitterly cold air that comes in, the flash freeze that comes in that I'm sure you've been hearing about, which could be the most lethal part of the storm, and that'll be later Sunday and Sunday night. All right, so first things first, as we plant the seeds for the two storms coming up, we've got temperatures that are in the upper 30s right now, which you say, well, that's not too bad. We're above freezing. But temperatures are in the mid-20s over the Catskills, so there is a cold front that's moving through. We actually had some coatings in the Catskills and Poconos earlier in the evening hours. Those have dried out. Skies are starting to clear, but the cold front's moving through. So some fresh cold air is being deposited in the area, just in time for storm number one to start approaching the area. Now, that storm is currently located over the deep south. It's coming out of the Rockies into the deep south, and that's going to track almost right toward us. And then you have the second storm, all right, and that's the real powerhouse, it already is, but will be the powerhouse that impacts our weather. And you can see what's going on the West Coast with blizzard warnings and flood alerts and high wind alerts. A miserable storm causing mudslides. So that's one of the key building blocks to the upcoming storm. But let's go back and concentrate on storm number one. Here's the details with that. So we're a little over 24 hours away from first flakes with the first storm. This is going to start later tomorrow evening toward midnight. It will mix with some rain near the coast, but just given how chilly the air is coming in tonight, the tendency for storms as of late to hold on to the cold air and the warming to be delayed, I think this is going to be another example of that. So it's primarily a wet snowstorm unless you're right at the coast or down the Jersey Shore, and that's going to wind down on Friday morning between about 8 and 10 in the morning. So it's not that it's, a high-grade storm, it's just that the timing is poor leading into your Friday morning travel. We do expect slick roads north and west, but even some slick spots in New York City. So let's get right into the Futurecast and we'll explain it. So tonight, obviously, we just have some clearing coming in, and tomorrow will be cold. We don't reach freezing tomorrow, and during the day, you'll notice some high clouds that are coming in and kind of filtering and fading that sunshine. By the time we get to late evening, some snow is going to try to sneak into the area. So I could see I think the orientation of the way the bands come in is that they'll probably streak into the higher elevations of northern New Jersey and into the Hudson Valley first, and then a couple of flakes get into New York City. Then we'll get into some snowfall. And if you were with us in our early shows, or if you've been hearing my discussions, I've been showing this model, and it's looked like the rain-snow line on the model was projected a little bit too far south and east. So I think it's done a proper correction by having that rain-snow line, even at 5 a.m., right over New York City. So I think the bulk of this will be wet snow, especially in the Bronx and maybe upper Manhattan, and we mix in with a little bit more rain, let's say at JFK or at Sheepshead Bay and into Staten Island. But also temperatures are still super close to freezing, even in the pre-dawn hours on Friday. So that's why I say, yeah, we'll certainly highlight the fact that the slippery conditions will be north and west, and we're in the 20s here. But we're awfully close to freezing even in Isop and in the city, even Belmar 33. So there can still be some slick spots, even in the places that do mix over a little bit. This is a quick-moving, rather weak feature, so I think it'll be out of here by between 8 and 10 in the morning on Friday. May actually see some brightening in the afternoon. Temperatures rebound to near 40, so not a bad Friday afternoon and evening travel. It's just that we have some slick spots in the morning. So our snowfall map really hasn't changed. I'm going to stick with it. A coating to an inch along the coast, around that inch in New York City, 1 to 3 inches north and west. The one thing that I'm going to be looking for as we go through the evening hours and I see more computer data coming in, that area of 3 inches plus, either I just label that's the best chance for 3 inches in the higher elevations, Poconos and Catskills, or I remove it completely, because I don't know that there's enough moisture to produce 3-4 inches of snow in any given spot. So it may just be a general 1 to 3 north and west with the best chance for 3 coming in the Poconos and Catskills. All right, Sarah, so let's pause before we start moving on to the next system and see if we have any questions. If they're focused on the weekend, I'll move right along to the weekend scenario. But any questions going?
This one, it's not really clear. Don's saying ice and trees are not a good mix. Are you concerned with potential power outages?
I am, and that was Dawn, did you say?
Dawn.
Okay, so Dawn's referencing more the weekend situation, and I know everybody sort of has tunnel vision to the big weekend storm. I just didn't want you to dismiss what will happen Friday morning with your travels and just watch your footing coming out of the subways and walking on the city sidewalks. But in terms of the weekend storm, yes, I'm concerned about icing, especially given some of the trends today. So, just north and west of New York City, we may have an extended period of icing. It may turn over to a freezing rain mix. So sure. And then with that precipitous drop in temperature following the storm Sunday night, I am concerned about an ice buildup and potentially some power outages. So I'll, full disclosure. So I live in the northern suburbs and have some propane tanks that fuel a generator, and I called to get a delivery to get, make sure my tanks are full, because I wouldn't be surprised if in the Hudson Valley or in northern New Jersey, interior Connecticut, that we see some power outages, and, we're going to need those generators going later in the weekend. Go ahead.
Okay. Glenn is saying the Euro model was showing that this storm stalls or loops, which means long duration. So is it possible instead of inches, we could be looking at feet?
No, I don't know that the European model really shows. There's a slight adjustment in track south and east from yesterday to today. I'm not really observing much of a loop close enough to us that would drag it on into Monday. I think basically we're looking at a Sunday evening end to the precipitation, and then that discharge of all the Arctic air coming in. So I'm not anticipating a stall. There's something called the North Atlantic Oscillation, and that has an impact on how quickly or slowly storms can exit the East Coast, and do they get locked up or blocked. And although the NAO is transitioning to what we call a negative phase, which would suggest that stuff can't become progressive anymore and may turn on the brakes as they get off the coast, we're just transitioning toward neutral as we go into this storm. So I don't think we're talking about a storm that's stalling out. All right, so let's get into the next storm here. And if you were with us on the Facebook Live last night, and I won't belabor this, but a little bit of the meteorology in it, we showed you the upper level wind. So I'm showing you yesterday's models, what we looked at, and I want to just compare it to what it looks like. So this is our storm for the weekend. And actually, Ty, can I come back to that? Because I have to point to a specific feature on this. We're looking at this feature right here, but I want you to direct your attention to this piece in the northern branch, because that's the whole key. Because if this is to phase with this, if this is to suppress this a little bit, then, we're going to have a track that's farther south and east close to the coast. If it doesn't get to it and pick it up early enough, then it has the avenue to track a little bit more north and west, and that's why we would have a warmer storm. But if you look, I want you to look at this piece right here. So that's yesterday's model, kind of stretched out a little bit, and now today's. It's super subtle, but looking at it, it's a little bit more consolidated, okay? And it's moving a little more east, and it's able to put a little bit of resistance on the storm track right here, forcing it to go a little bit more north and east than going to our north and west. So that was kind of the big change in the model today. Such a subtle thing to look for in a change of a steering pattern from day to day, but look at what it translates to. Yesterday's models had the heaviest snow axis, and we're talking, the foot or more, from, let's say, Erie, Pennsylvania to Syracuse to Burlington, Vermont, okay? But now, with the new model data, what you're seeing is the heaviest axis of snow is from like State College, Pennsylvania to Albany to maybe Portland, Maine. So I'm not sure if it overcorrected a little bit, or if that's what's going to verify, or maybe the truth is somewhere in between. But obviously, we still, over the next 24 hours, we're going to see a little bit of windshield wiping going on with that particular heaviest band of snow. Just given some of the cold temperatures I saw in the European model today, I feel like maybe it overdid it a little bit, but it's something we have to pay attention to in terms of the trend. Go ahead, Sarah.
Sure. Jeff is asking, is there a chance for slick roads and black ice?
Yes, absolutely. Now, with the first storm, slippery roads were highlighting, especially from the city north and west, but especially north and west on Friday morning. I don't see a lot of like freezing rain with that particular system. There may be some freezing drizzle as it ends over our northwest suburbs. I'm more concerned about a more prolonged icing happening with the second event. So yeah, I mean, you're talking about icy travel Friday morning and an extended period of dangerous travel coming up during the day. I mean, listen, with the snow Saturday night, with the icing on Sunday, and then with the refreeze. See, this is a situation where, you know, the wind's going to be blowing as this storm departs, but it's not going to be, there's so much liquid with this that we're going to have a tough time blow drying the whole area before the temperatures fall into the 20s and teens on Sunday night. So that flash freeze will mean like a skating rink across the area. So we'll get to some of the travel suggestions we have later in the weekend. So I want to get back to now the Futurecast of the second storm. So we start Friday late morning, and that's when the first storm is departing. Okay, so we'll get a breather Friday afternoon and into the day on Saturday. The storm comes into its own over the middle of the country by Saturday evening. Heavy snows from St. Louis to just north of Cincinnati, and we'll have really good snows as we're on at 6 o'clock on Saturday evening, 5 and 6 o'clock. You'll notice steady, we'll show you radars, and there'll be steady snows moving through central Pennsylvania and knocking on our door by Saturday evening. I think we're going to go through the daylight hours dry. I do think after sunset, all bets are off for some snowflakes getting into the western suburbs, and more likely late evening is when the snow starts to kick in. All right, so here's the result of that change in storm track I told you about as we go through Saturday. Instead of just rain taking over the bulk of the area by the wee hours of the morning on Sunday, the cold air is hanging tough, enough so that we can add a few more hours of snow to the mix, and if we're snowing at a good snowfall rate, that makes the difference between a couple, 3 inches off the top to half a foot off the top or more. So you have to, if this continues with this colder trend, then we're going to have to allow for a good thump of front end snow before there's some mixing. Now, I do think once we get toward daybreak that we are seeing a changeover along the coast to rain, but there's a lot of cold air right at the surface. So is this rain, or is this freezing rain from the city nearby northwest suburbs and rain along the immediate coast? That's something we can't decipher just yet. It's a little too early, but it does concern me that this storm is showing a signature of the cold air really holding in, especially from the city and even in the nearby northwest suburbs. And notice, you've got heavy snow here going through northeast Pennsylvania into the Catskills, into the Mohawk Valley in New England. And when you fast forward even into Sunday afternoon, you've never changed over. You've got a complete snow event from the Poconos into the Catskills and in parts of the mid-Hudson Valley. So that's something we'll have to be concerned with as well. So let's assume we do go over to plain rain for a period there in the middle of the day on Sunday. Maybe it's I-287 south and east. Then as the storm pulls away and cold air starts to wrap back in, we could finish as a period of snow. My experience in these type of storms that sometimes the modeling will show a little bit more snow than actually is able to fall. Sometimes it just cuts it off, but there is the opportunity to see a little burst of snow on the backside of the storm before it departs, and I think the precipitation is winding down as we go into Saturday evening. So this map is going to help you with planning in just a second, but first let me take a couple more questions. Sarah?
Lots of bread and milk comments. Is this a bread and milk kind of weekend? Or I guess, should people be going to the store to get bread?
You know, listen, it's still Wednesday evening. I mean, we've had this snow, I call it snow anticipation all week long. I woke up this morning, I'm like, the first storm's tonight, right? No, you know, it's not till tomorrow night. So we have a while before we have to give you the bread alert. But, you know, if this were tomorrow night and we're getting more confident in this type of storm track, I would say that once we get into Saturday evening, you want to decide to stay off the roads. I mean, you want to limit your travel right through Sunday, and I'm thankful that it's MLK Day on Monday, because you don't want any travel on Monday because there'll be icy roads. I mean, maybe, first of all, if we get that cold on Sunday night and Monday, a lot of the treatments that go on the roadways don't work as well. They're not as effective. So we'll definitely have icy secondaries and tertiary roads, but we might, even the main roads could be icy. There's a lot of water that can melt. There could be blocks of ice just because of all the water that's fallen into the snowpack. So it could really be dangerous, even on the rails. I'm sure there'll be some freezing issues on the rails. We've seen that in the past with this type of cold and dramatic drop. So travel's really going to be hindered once we get to Saturday night, if this is the storm that comes to fruition.
Yeah, so just to go off of that, we're getting a lot of questions about people who obviously have plans for the weekend to travel, whether it's flying or driving into the city, out of the state. There seems to be a lot of concern, but you're saying it's probably a little too early to really...
It's probably early to tell locally whether, like, you could have the go-ahead to, okay, we go over to rain by Sunday morning and roadways are predominantly wet in and around the city. I think we're probably locked into having problems north and west of I-287, but maybe we're able to change over to rain and have a time where, I mean, it's not going to be nice to travel, but it could just be a heavy rain and a lot of ponding on roads, but not ice. So, I mean, the best of the worst. But, I think there's going to be tremendous airline delays all across the eastern two-thirds of the country as we go into, especially north of the Mason-Dixon. As we go through the weekend, there's going to be big-time delays. And I think that I would not be surprised to see ground stops around the Northeast. So even if, this is the best-case scenario and we do get over to rain, there's still going to be lots of delays across the Northeast.
Cindy and also Aaron both just commented they're a little confused about the colors on the map behind you, so maybe you can go over again.
Okay, so let's go. I mean, hopefully you can decipher some of the colors here, but what I'm going to do here is, because it's too early given the uncertainty of the storm track for the Saturday night and the Sunday event, what I'm going to do is I'm going to reveal these color bands here and what's happening in each area. So let's start out with some of our southernmost suburbs as we get into, let's say, coastal Ocean County. There's probably a brief period of snow and sleet, and then it goes over to rain, and there should be little snow accumulation, and this is where travel would likely just feature wet roads, okay? But that's only a small part of the area. Now, once we get into central New Jersey and into New York City, also Long Island as well, we are going to start out as snow. I think we're going to go over to ice for a period. I do think eventually we're going to go over to rain. Now, whether that's 2 or 3 in the morning on Sunday or 7 or 8 o'clock in the morning on Sunday, I'm not sure about that. And think about that. Those hours are going to mean everything. I mean, if we're snowing at 1 inch an hour and we get a few more hours, it's just like the November storm where, we're forecasting 1 to 3 and all of a sudden you end up with 3 to 6. Well, that's the real wild card in this storm, is that change over time and how stubborn the cold air is going to be. So what I've done is, although I can't give you an exact amount, I'm saying there are a few inches possible on the front end of this storm. Might be a little bit on the backside too, but there's a few inches. But I want to know, I did this on purpose. I put this next band, right near the GWB, because I'm concerned that there's even several inches getting down in parts of New York City. See, this is the area, once we get north and west of New York City, where we've got some snow off the top and we can get several inches. But then, even when a changeover occurs, we're not warm enough to go to plain rain. We go to an extended period of some ice and just limited rain with this before we may end up as a little bit of snow at the backside of the storm, and several inches of snow and ice, for that matter, are possible. Then you go into the Catskills and into the Mid-Hudson Valley. Now here's where we may just have a pure snowstorm. I may have to angle this line a little bit more southwest to northeast here, but you get the idea that in the higher elevations, we may be just talking about a major snowstorm in double-digit totals.
Other than, people seem to be very split. Some people are very excited and want as much snow as possible, while others are not looking forward to it.
I honestly, I'd rather we just have a pure snowstorm out of this, because you don't want to get into the ice problems that we're going to have, especially with the refreeze that'll come in behind this storm. So whatever precip we get, whatever amounts we get, we all will join the party in terms of the rapid refreeze. Now, this is going to start Sunday afternoon. As the storm begins to pull away and cold northerly winds come in, our temperatures will drop rapidly to the point where, by Monday morning, some places could be in the single digits. So any slush in standing water, that is going to freeze. So driving around, walking around, really hazardous as we go through late Sunday and Sunday night. Let me give you a depiction. Again, if you joined us yesterday, this particular computer model showed us near 50 degrees at that time at 10 a.m. And today it's showing us closer to the freezing mark. I think the truth probably lies somewhere in between. But if you notice, look at the air just to the north here, sub-zero across parts of Canada and into northern New England. And let's take that 10 o'clock timestamp, take you through the afternoon and evening hours. By 7 o'clock, projected at 14 degrees in New York City. And by the time we get into Monday morning, single digits. So I think on average we'll probably have at least a 20-degree drop in about 3 hours on Sunday afternoon and evening, maybe a 30-degree drop in about 6 hours. And that's a lot if you're talking about 1.5 to maybe 2 inches of liquid in this, in whatever form it may be. There's going to be tremendous freezing across the area and problems and lend itself to power outages. Okay, just to sum up on the 7-day AccuWeather forecast, and if you're not familiar with our 7-day, we color the days red when it's an AccuWeather Alert day or a high impact day in terms of weather. So we have our Thursday night into Friday event, a minor event, but some slippery travel, especially from the city north and west. There's an AccuWeather Alert day, but pretty decent in the afternoon. Even if we see limited clearing, we could get above 40 degrees. By Saturday, we're quiet during the daylight hours. Clouds will increase. We'll have some snow coming in during the evening hours. So the daylight hours probably look okay, but snow may be creeping in as we get close to sunset or a little thereafter. The worst is going to be late Saturday night all the way into the day on Sunday. Snow going to ice, going to rain, potentially going back to snow, and then the forecast of 45, which if the trend continued, I'd probably lower that close to 40. But you get the idea that we're going to drop 30, 40 degrees here as we go from Sunday during the day to Monday morning. And Monday, I just have an AccuWeather Alert day just because of severe chill and sub-zero wind chills and still some compromised travel on Monday. We start to climb out of the deep freeze on Tuesday, although it's still very cold, and it won't be as harsh on Wednesday, although I'll say there could be some rain or snow Wednesday night coming with this system. If you clicked on late, I just want to make sure you see the snowfall map for the first event. So let me just put that up quickly. And there it is, coating to an inch along the coast, probably an inch in New York City, inch or two north and west. When we talk about the three, I think the best chances are in northwest New Jersey into the Poconos and Catskills. And just watch your travel on Friday morning. That should be out of here by 8 or 10 o'clock in the morning. All right, so that's the update so far. Still have some new information pouring in. We'll, of course, have an updated forecast coming up on Eyewitness News at 11. We'll be with you throughout both of the events. It is going to be a long ride to get through this, and that weekend event is certainly going to be dangerous for a good chunk of the area. So if you can limit or even cancel some of your travel, we may be on the cusp of that over the next 24 hours and pulling the plug on going any long distances over the weekend. Again, we'll see you at 11 o'clock. Thanks as always for clicking on ABC7NY. You can always get your weather information on Twitter and Instagram and Facebook as well, all the social media platforms. Stay safe. We'll see you tonight at 11 o'clock on television.